My wife and I are undertaking a massive DIY bedroom makeover.
Why so annoying?
But this isn't just any old makeover. Andrea wants to give this room a super high-end look at a fraction of the cost, which means we won't be hiring out the professionals, we'll be doing all of the work ourselves. And that sounds really noble on paper, but we've discovered this process is actually really difficult, and it's tempted us to just go ahead and hire it out.
Can we just hire somebody to do this?
After installing shiplap on the ceiling last week, this week's test will be building and installing custom beams. And if there was any week to quit, it would be this one.
If this doesn't work, it's the end of DIY wife.
Will we complete this project ourselves and save a ton of money, or will we cry uncle and just hire out the pros? Find out in the adventures of my DIY wife and her non-handy husband.
I just have to warn you that I'm sorry. Sorry.
All right, now that we have all the shiplap done, we're gonna start working on the beads, and step one is to measure all of these supports that I have. Just wall to wall, I'm gonna write down all my measurements, and then hopefully this will go really fast.
The width of our room is 159 inches.
Ow!
Theoretically, all these measurements should be the exact same, but since this is an older house, it's definitely a good idea to double check.
And once again, the tape measurer struck.
Well, we should hope that they're the same. Yeah, that's... I'm not doing anything.
It was attacking. 159 again.
And after 3 beams, things were looking pretty good.
159 again, brother. We're square so far.
Perfection is rarely attainable, but you know, we were close enough to it.
I'm guessing 159. What about you?
This one definitely is less. 158 and a half.
159.
I think I'm gonna do this one a little less than 159 too.
So not quite square. Just a little off.
So tall.
I'm very tall. 159, 73 and an 8.
After I had all of my measurements written down, I was ready to head outside and make my first cuts.
Those are some pretty extreme thoughts.
It's stuck.
16-foot boards are extremely long, and they require you to get a bit creative.
These are so long. I'm like, how? I think I'm gonna move my table to where I can rest them on the table.
That's perfect. Love the
Such a
setup.
mess out here.
What do you mean?
These boards were so long that I needed something more than just my miter saw stand to hold them up, and so I moved my workbench and used that as an extra support.
159. Round 2. The mega board.
These are 16 feet?
16 footers, baby.
These boards were so long, it kind of made today's project feel a bit like a jousting practice.
Oh, big dog.
Oh my gosh. The clouds are kind of nice. All right, there's my boards for the first beam. That was pretty easy, and I'm ready to practice on my little remnant pieces here, and then we'll try it on the actual boards.
All right. How did your test go?
Look at that. That's pretty good. I'm gonna do this side.
Oh, okay.
All right, there it is. Little
Wow.
practice beam.
Look at that.
So it's hollow in the middle. I'll fill my nail holes out here and probably give it just a light sanding to smooth out some of these rough spots. So once I get my beam built, I'm just gonna take this, I fit it over the support thing on the ceiling,
Yes.
and then put a couple of nails there to hold it.
Okay, could you hold up a little higher? I want to get under that and have a look.
Isn't that great? Could you hold it up above your head like there's a ceiling? Gosh, this is hard. Yeah, put it down.
After a successful test run with my scrap pieces, I was ready to start assembling my first beam.
All right, I have this one kind of in place. I'm gonna go ahead and start adding my nails, and just before I add each nail, I'm gonna make sure that these two boards are like perfectly flush before I add the nail in that spot. So I'm not worrying about lining up the entire thing just yet.
Once I had the ends of my boards lined up and got my first nail in, I slowly made my way down the beam, carefully lining up my boards before I added each nail. And about 25 nails later, we had our first beam.
We have a beam.
Look at it.
Look at that beam.
Looks pretty good, huh?
Looks great. What a beam.
So we want to hit pause real quick and get real for a minute. Did you know that currently both Andrea and I individually meet with a therapist every week. And more than that, we're also in regular therapy for our marriage. And here's the thing, it's not like we're always in therapy forevermore, but for us, it seems like there's seasons when we just hit a roadblock, whether personally or in our marriage. And we know when we've hit this roadblock when we've tried everything that we know to do, again, whether individually or within our marriage, but it just doesn't seem to be enough. And that's when Andrew and I go, you know what? We need someone outside of ourselves to help listen, ask questions, give insight, and even share techniques for making positive changes in the right direction. So if our story sounds familiar to you and you feel stuck, whether that be personally or in your marriage, and you're ready to get help, then you may want to check out the sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp, as they are on a mission to help make starting therapy easier. Getting started is really simple. You fill out a brief questionnaire and you'll get matched with the therapist in as little as a couple of days. Then if the therapist doesn't feel like the right fit for you, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you really connect with. So if you're struggling and you keep hitting the same walls, please do yourself a favor and, like Andrea, like myself, get some outside help. And if you want to explore BetterHelp, then you can click our link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/DIYwife and get 10% off your first month of therapy. So we're gonna get back into the project now, but let this little pause be your sign to do something different, to go get help.
All right, I've got some drywall compound here. I'm gonna use this to quickly fill my nail holes. I would much rather do this now than when I have it attached to the ceiling, even though I'm gonna add a few more nail holes when I do that.
After filling all the nail holes, we set the first beam aside so we could make room to get started on the next beam.
All right, got one beam constructed. I'm gonna start on my next one while I wait for the drywall compound and the nail holes to dry.
These boards were so long, Andrea nearly had to use the trash can as a sawhorse extension.
Ooh, trash can, gross. Big beefy boy. What do we got? We got a 1x6 or what?
Yeah. Oh.
Hey, easy.
I gotta hit you or hit the...
Oh, what's the band?
159.
Like I did on the first beam, I grabbed two 1x4s and a 1x6 and cut them all down to the correct length. This process wasn't necessarily complicated, but I did want to make sure and take the extra time to line my boards up perfectly before adding the nails so that the seam would be nearly invisible once I filled it with caulk and painted.
Same thing.
Beam number 2.
After filling all of the nail holes, I moved on to beam number 3, and this one definitely felt like it went by faster as I was starting to get this process down.
It was pretty crazy to see how long these beams were, and to my knowledge, this is the longest thing we've ever put on this work table. Beam number 3.
Finally, it was time to construct the fourth and final long beam, which went surprisingly fast. Once I had all of my long beams assembled, I went ahead and grabbed my random orbital sander and started sanding down all of my nail holes and any rough spots along the edges. This is another one of those steps that isn't necessarily complicated, but it does take a bit of time and it'll wear you out.
You good?
Sweaty.
Finally, I grabbed my leaf blower to blow off all of the excess dust because this was much easier than vacuuming all of my beams once I had them installed.
And it was at this point that Andrea really got my hopes up.
Nice.
Get some food. Did
you say
something?
food?
And then she acted as if she had never said anything about food and went right back to work.
I decided it would be a good idea to install the shorter beam first, as it would be much more manageable to work with.
I'm liking it.
It was a snug fit, so I had to use my hammer to get it in place, but in the end, it fit perfectly.
First little beam up. Oh my gosh.
Do you love it or do you love it?
Oh, it's hard to say. I feel like it's gonna look rough until I caulk all of the seams and edges and then paint it.
I think it looks really good. Just like you.
Okay.
Next, we were ready to try a long beam, and this may not look like much, but it was quite a challenge to get this 13-foot beam into our bedroom.
Woo! Can you go over there and then if you want to stand on the nightstand?
Is that why they call this a nightstand?
Oh, ow!
My end of the beam wouldn't fit over the support board with the wall right there, and so Andrea decided to come to my side and see if she could figure out what the problem was.
That's not happening.
I, however, was not anticipating this as I had just released a Mexican food-empowered SBD that nearly knocked her off her feet.
I just have to warn you that I'm sorry.
Sorry. Babe, get down!
Sorry, babe.
I'm sorry, forgive me.
Oh my god!
Forgive me. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were gonna have to come over to my side of the room.
Like, maybe we can start this end here, or that end here. Come hold down here again. Did you let one out over there?
No, I didn't know.
Like, you go back and forth?
Once the haze subsided, we got back to work, but we still weren't quite able to get this beam to fit.
Okay, nice, yeah.
Sorry, let me go find something that's like rubbery.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm just doing what I do best. How is it that every project I end up doing this? Oh man. This gets kind of lonely sometimes though. Hey, you're back.
I grabbed a mallet to see if I could tap this beam into place, but I wasn't having any luck.
That's a great sound. Don't worry about me.
Oh my gosh. You don't even have it pushed up against the wall. Shoot. Can you push it? Oh yeah, there's no way we're gonna get it in. That wall is not straight or something.
And after all that effort, we had to take it down.
That'll do it.
At this point, we decided we could use a boost of morale, and so we set aside the first long beam and decided to tackle the next one, which would hopefully prove a lot less tricky without the wall next to it.
And this beam would require me to take my shoes off.
Thankfully, this beam installation went according to plan, and it was so exciting to see the first long beam up on the ceiling.
But we didn't have any time to waste, so very quickly we went and grabbed the next long beam.
I don't feel like I've ever stood on our bed before.
You always cross your fingers a bit when doing a custom install like this, but thankfully this second long beam appeared to be a perfect fit.
For this final beam, I needed to pull down my curtains and curtain rod first, and we were really hoping that the wall would not give us trouble like it did on the other side of the room.
Come on, baby.
Before we could even see if the wall was going to give us trouble, we discovered that the beam was actually a little bit too long.
I'm like ramming into the sheetrock. I feel like I need to trim it.
And so we headed back outside to make some adjustments.
Oh, my shoulders
All right,
hurt.
hang on.
At this point, it was time to pick up our kids from school, and so I tried something risky and left the camera in Andrea's hands. And so now I would like to present to you DIY wife minus Dean.
All right, Dean. Woo. Dean's going to get the kids, so we've got the Andrea cam. I took it off the tripod, and I can't get it back on. So instead of ripping this board down, I just grabbed the 2x4, which is a 1/2 inch skinnier than the one I had up there. I got a 2x4, and then the board that I ripped down on the table saw, that's the correct width, I cut down to fit in that space. Let's see if I can figure out how to film me putting that up there. I'm sure it's gonna be high quality filming.
Despite my lack of ability with a camera, I did finally get this support board cut and properly installed.
Let me see if I can put this beam up.
But you know, this is just real life. When you're doing DIY projects, you've got to tag team things to get the job done. So kudos to Andrea for pressing on while I was out getting the kids.
Could go really poorly. I'm just gonna try it. What could go wrong?
And once I got back, we were ready to work as a team again.
Oh, never mind.
With the thinner support boards in place, we were ready to try installing this beam again, hopefully with a better outcome this time.
Good on this end.
But as luck would have it, this just couldn't be easy.
What
Dude,
am I hitting?
this thing, it's just poo-poo. Doo-doo. Excuse the potty language, guys. One of these days we're gonna finish. It's not so close to now.
After quite a bit of effort, we finally got this beam over the support board and started nailing it in place.
I love that.
And in this moment, I was considering announcing my DIY retirement.
I have a shoulder burn there.
Ah, doo-doo.
Wow, with that, we got it.
But there's no time for retirement because we still had one more beam to install.
And even though we got some extra support from an enthusiastic youngster, this beam installation, once again, would not go according to plan.
There you go, baby doll. Why so annoying?
Like on the other wall, I discovered that it was just not going to be possible to slide my beam over the support, and so I decided to pull my support board down from the ceiling.
Oh, that one was not in a stud. Oh my gosh, babe.
Okay, got it.
And replace it with a much narrower one.
As you can see by my posture, this process is absolutely thrilling, but thankfully it didn't last long.
If this doesn't work, it's the end of DIY wife. At least the end of the non-handy husbands.
We finally got this last beam in place, which means I get to keep my camera guy.
Right on! Wow, is that it?
Whoa. That's it for getting the beams and the shiplap up. Now, next week, I need to fill the nail holes, caulk all of the edges, pick a paint color.
Hey, you know what? Let's not talk about more work. Can we just slow down and celebrate?
Oh, I'm good with that, yeah.
Let's just celebrate, okay?
Celebrate for the weekend. It looks so good. I'm so happy
It
with it.
does.
So happy. I feel like, are you making fun of me? You go. No.
It looks
This
amazing.
is just what I wanted. And they look totally fine up against the wall. That was what was throwing me off. Is I wasn't sure if that would look a little bit weird, but it totally doesn't. So if you're doing beams, they look fine if they go up to the wall.
Man, I love the way the beams and shiplap look on the ceiling. It looks super high end, really gorgeous, and I cannot wait to see these things get painted.
Yeah, I love the way that these beams turned out, and it is so exciting to see what's been up in my head for so long actually start to come to fruition. And like I said, it's just so exciting. I'm glad we actually got them all up because I was getting a little bit nervous there for a little bit.
And this week was a shorter work week, so that means a shorter video, but still, I feel like we made a ton of progress in a small amount of time.
Next week is a big week, maybe the biggest week of this project, as it is paint week. And there is a ton of prep work to be done because not only am I gonna paint, I'm gonna be wallpapering eventually, and I need to sand every square inch of the walls of this room, which is gonna be a little bit crazy.
So join us next week as we try and push through and stay alive and bring major transformation to this bedroom. So we'll catch you in the next video. Hey, no bloops. We ain't got no bloops.
No time for that.
I'm tired.
Painting.
Oh, painting.